I was visiting a friend from college, Jake, in his small hometown. I'd heard a lot about it, but it was nothing like the city I was used to. We spent the first few days just hanging out, checking out the local spots, and grabbing drinks at some of the dive bars. On the last night of my visit, Jake mentioned a place he'd been curious about for years, but had never gotten the chance to explore. An old, abandoned mansion a few miles out in the woods. It was just the kind of adventure we used to go on back in college, so I agreed without hesitation. Less than 30 minutes later, we were trekking through a narrow path that cut through thick trees. The sun was starting to set, and we had flashlights in hand just in case. After about 20 minutes, the trail ended, and we had to follow a barely noticeable footpath through the brush. The walk took about an hour, and just when we were about to give up, we finally saw the mansion in the distance, surrounded by a few smaller buildings. They were all dark, almost like they had been abandoned for a long time. Up close, the mansion wasn't as old as I expected. It had modern materials like vinyl siding, but it was clearly in disrepair, with vines growing up the sides and broken windows. The road leading up to it was just a tiny gravel path, and it seemed like someone had once tried to build a little community, but something had gone terribly wrong. We stepped closer to the first building, the mansion. We looked through an open doorway, and although there was nothing inside but dust and weeds, the place had a strange feeling. The air was thick, almost suffocating. Jake and I both felt it. As we stood in the doorway, something slammed loudly in the distance. Both of us jumped, our hearts racing. We glanced nervously toward the sound, but all was quiet again. Neither of us said anything, but we could feel something wasn't right. We stepped into the house, moving cautiously through the dark rooms. The walls seemed to groan under the weight of age and neglect. We made our way up a narrow staircase, and as we did, the temperature dropped. The upstairs was pitch black, despite the dim light from our flashlights. The hallway was narrow and had 2 doors. There was also a small, locked attic door in the ceiling. We opened the first door and found another empty room. But just as we were about to move on, we heard footsteps from below, the soft crunch of grass, then the sound of footsteps walking slowly up to the house. We froze, unsure of what to do. Whoever it was, they had definitely seen us outside. The footsteps stopped at the front door. Then we heard a voice. "Hello?" The voice was rough, almost crackling. "I just want to talk. No harm at all." We stood still, barely breathing. The seconds stretched into what felt like forever. After what seemed like a minute, we heard nothing. The silence was deafening. Slowly, Jake made his way down the stairs, peeking around the corner of the door. His face went pale. "There's no one there," he whispered. I rushed down to see for myself. The doorway was empty, no sign of anyone outside. But there, in the dirt near the front steps, was a single set of footprints. They led up to the door, but there were no footprints going away. It was like the man had just vanished into thin air. Both of us knew what we had to do. Without another word, we bolted into the woods, our hearts pounding in our chests. We didn't stop until we were safely back at Jake's place. Neither of us ever spoke about what happened that night, but we both knew whatever we encountered in that mansion, it wasn't human, and it was still out there, waiting.